Did you know the police can lie to you during an interrogation? This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law. The police are legally allowed to lie to you during an interrogation. They can tell you things like your friend already confessed and implicated you. They can tell you we have your fingerprints or your DNA at the scene. Or they can say we've got video footage of you when they don't. They can tell you that this will go easier if you just cooperate. I'm a former prosecutor. Now I defend people accused of crimes across Wyoming. I've sat on both sides of the table, and one of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they can talk their way out of an investigation. Investigators are trained and have a great deal of practice getting people to talk. Some of the most common tactics include, if you just talk to us, I'll go to the prosecutor and get you a better deal. Or, the judge will appreciate your honesty. Now, sometimes this may be true, but mostly it's not. The point to keep in mind is that they are keeping the conversation going to get statements to use against you. Now, if you can imagine, sometimes people accidentally falsely confess. And this isn't literally saying I did it when they clearly weren't at the crime of the scene or they weren't involved. It's more subtle. So if you can imagine a father whose son is hurt and it's accidental, and the father feels terrible about it, but law enforcement is called. Now, the officer will sit down and start talking to the father, and the conversation will probably go something like this. So you had a long day at work, isn't that right? And your son had been crying for hours. You were probably frustrated. Now, most people will say yes to those statements if they're true, and then the questions slowly shift. Now, I know you're not a bad parent. You were just trying your best, right? But would it be fair to say you got a little Western with him? Now, you've already agreed to several statements before this. You don't want to argue over a phrase, so you say, I guess. Now, that's not a confession technically, but later the police report may say, Mr. Smith said, quote, I got a little Western with my son. Do you see the difference? The report leaves out the context that led to the statement. That is, those were the police officer's words, not the client's words. This is one of the reasons I insist on listening to the actual recorded interview whenever one exists. I've handled many cases where the recording tells a much more complete story than the report says, and I would say the report is even misleading and makes the statement sound way more incriminating than it was in the conversation. That's why every word, every bit of context matters. Now, what should you do instead? Be respectful, don't argue, don't try to convince the officer they're mistaken. Simply say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and I'd like to speak with my attorney, whether you actually have one or not. Then stop talking. Do not keep explaining. Do not fall for the tactic, okay, well, I just have one more question. Don't think you can talk your way out of an investigation. As a former prosecutor, I can tell you investigators are trained to gather evidence against you, not to clear your name, not to clear up a misunderstanding. There's no upside to talking. Now, I've never had a client hurt their case by politely exercising their constitutional rights. That is, the right to remain silent and have an attorney. I've seen many people unintentionally make their case much harder for me by believing they could explain everything away. If you're under investigation or think you might be, contact us before you talk to the police. It could be one of the most important decisions you make. If you want to understand your rights before you're ever in this situation, follow our page. we post weekly videos explaining what we can do to protect you. Or if you're already in need of help, I will include a link in the description where you can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.